We just lived from day to day, and were always ready to be called on to go and do whatever had to be done. And by the time we did two mining, that was, well, if we got back and were the only plane that had got back in time, we were available to do air sea rescue. Sometimes we would be given the job of taking either food or a person, a coast watcher, to the position where they had to be. Quite often there were tasks of that kind that were independent. We would fly up, usually under the cover of darkness, either early in the morning or late at night. The time seemed fairly full, really. The day disappeared. Well, when the war was ended, I was still pretty young, but we decided we wanted to get married anyhow. We weren't going to fiddle around any longer. And so for that period, say for 8 or 9 years, I was studying and so on. I did an honours course at the university, which took 4 years. And then we got married, and then I was sent elsewhere. In my life then, we had no sooner got back home than a friend of mine who'd been in the Air Force with me and who lived in Fiji came and said to my wife and me, we need a headmaster for our school in Fiji. Are you prepared to come? My wife had done a dream home. She'd planned this house and so on. We were up there. We had 2 little children, very little children, and he came and said, we need a headmaster for our school in Fiji. What about it? And she looked at me and I looked at her and she said, why not? Even though she'd put so much time into this. And so we went over there. 6 years, yeah, 6 years I did that. And then we came back and well, I did various sort of things in the ministry from that point on. We went back to Fiji much later on. There were a lot of coups in Fiji, and once again the call went out, would you come over and give us a hand? So we went over to Fiji again when those coups were taking place. I would look after a little church in Suva, because there was a lot of trouble in the church as well as the community. The whole community was upside down.
And so it was pretty dangerous to be there, was it?
Oh, not...
You don't seem to factor.
No, we didn't think of that. I mean, life was pretty wild when these people in Fiji got restless and were scratching for power. On one particular Sunday, they declared that nobody was to use the roads. They said it was a religious thing. It was nothing to do with religion at all. And I had an appointment, and I was going out to take this appointment, and there was a bridge, and they'd put a whole lot of 44-gallon drums across the entrance of the bridge. So I got out, because I'd been in Fiji for a long time, thought I knew myself the way to do. And this big Fijian guy came towards me. He must have known not who I was, but what I was on. I was going out to a service. He said, if you touch those bloody drums, I'll throw you in the river, which was a most unexpected thing for a Fijian to say to a bloke. And I was about to contest it, and my wife said, come on, Dick, let's go. We're not going to do anything useful here. So we had quite a few interesting things like that. I was a kind of a support to the president of the church there, who in the midst of all this production had people rebelling against him. And some of them, there were a few scoundrels around who, you know, were trying to grab power for themselves, both in the town and the city and in the church and so on. It was a very restless time, but finally, after all that period settled down, we came home again, and then I was no sooner home than I was asked to go to the Northern Territory. So I did a few years as a responsible church leader in the Northern Territory area.
In Darwin?
Living in Darwin, yes, and we were responsible for 5 Aboriginal mission stations along the top of Arnhem Land.
Yep.
So I would fly out to them, and we kept contact with what the staff were doing there. And that was a very happy time, really. We enjoyed it thoroughly. Finally, the time came for me to so-called retire, and so I did a year's work at an Aboriginal college, training Aboriginal and European people to go and work in Aboriginal communities as teachers and various other things. Noongalinya College it's called in Darwin, Noongalinya. And that was a very happy time, because I'd still had contact with those other earlier activities on the various islands and so on. But the time came ultimately that we just had to properly retire, and so that came. And I've been living in an RSL village now for the last 25 years. It's surprising, but I'm 95 just about now, so that during that period we would do various things that were asked of us to go and help out in some sort of supervisory way. Sadly, my wife died in '03, so I've been on my own since that time. The family wants to have a bit of a celebration for my 95th anniversary, to just say...
When is that? When is your birthday?
In October.
October? Which number?
The 25th of October.
Okay.
But that won't become a matter of public...
You don't, okay, keeping that under wraps. All right. Well,
I mean, I could keep on going, telling stories.